When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/Spotify.
This podcast contains adult themes and language, and some of the things that we discuss may be disturbing to some listeners. In this podcast, we discuss sexual assault, torture, race, and murder. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care of yourself.
Let's get into the early life of Roubideaux. What do you got for us, Beth?
Well, Jacqueline, or Jackie Roubideaux, was born on May 5th, 1959 in Comanche County, Oklahoma. We could not find anything about Jackie's early life or any news articles that actually stated conclusively that Jackie Roubideaux is Native American, but we believe that she is Comanche and possibly Lakota.
Yes, and here's why. So her great-grandmother, Wa Perche, is listed as being married to a Comanche man, and she was on the U.S. Indian rolls, which were listed as individuals and families used to track and document the population of Native Americans on reservations.
Roubideaux is a variant of a French surname commonly used by the Lakota people. Jackie's mother, Cher Roubideaux, or Sherry Roubideaux, it's Chere, was born in South Dakota, and the Lakota are found mostly in the 5 reservations of western South Dakota.
At the time of the crimes, Jackie was still a teenager in high school and was living with her mother and Cherry Roubideaux, her grandmother Winifred, or Winnie, and other relatives. Of note, I found documentation that Winnie's brother Herbert, which is Jackie Roubideaux's great uncle, was sent to an Indian school in Phoenix.
Between 1819 and 1969, across the nation, Native American children were forcibly removed from their homes and placed in boarding schools, where they sometimes endured physical and sexual abuse, severe malnourishment, and forced labor.
The U.S. government operated 408 such schools as part of a widespread effort to assimilate indigenous peoples. More than 900 children died in these institutions nationwide, and it's a lot more than 900. That number is small. Arizona had 47 federally funded Indian boarding schools, more than any state except for Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I don't know if we will ever know how many children died because it was hidden.
Yeah, it was hidden.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of Nickel Boys. Have you seen that? The Academy Award?
No.
So Nickel Boys is a movie about black kids who were sent to, they called the ones for black kids reform schools.
Okay.
And they were showing actual scientific footage of the 3D imaging of the ground where the bodies were suspected to be in the movie. And I recall us covering on one of our news segments a few years back about these discoveries of thousands of bodies. I only bring all that up to say that this 900 number figure is a clear,
it says
clearly
more
inaccurate.
than 900. They know of 900, and
they know of 900,
there's
but
plenty more. Yeah,
plenty more. That's all.
yeah. The Phoenix Indian Industrial School was founded in 1891 and operated as a boarding school for Native American children until 1990.
What? That wasn't that long ago.
No. Thousands of children were sent there, where their education largely centered on severing cultural ties and enforcing assimilation.
In its early years, students were subjected to military-style discipline, prohibited from speaking their native languages. They would get hit or beaten or punished whenever they did that.
Yeah.
And required to wear American-style uniforms and cut their hair, which you do not do in indigenous culture.
Yeah.
That's, it's a symbol of important things that I cannot name off the top of my mouth right now.
It's different for different cultures.
Exactly. But it's just not something that you do. And what a violation.
Yeah.
They did those things to get them to conform to Western norms.
Yeah. Although Herbert was about 20 years older than Winnie, it's possible that Winnie was sent there too. In any case, there has got to be some generational trauma there.
Couldn't agree more. Jackie and her family lived in the same neighborhood as the victims, and Jackie was often seen walking around the neighborhood. Sometime around 1975 and 1976, Jackie was suspected of setting off several false fire alarms in the neighborhood and was being closely monitored by the authorities.
She has been described by people as quiet and shy, and it was said that she had difficulty looking people in the eye. One of the victim's grandmothers described her as quote-unquote weird.
So now let's jump into the timeline. Splish splash.
Here we go.
Here we go. April 8th, 1976. Mary Elizabeth Carpenter and her twin sister Augustine Tina Jacqueline Carpenter were abducted in broad daylight from their grandmother's home. The sisters were being raised by their grandmother Augustine Williams, who had adopted them as infants.
Their family shared a lifelong friendship with Jackie Roubideaux's family, and the twins' aunt, Thomasina, who lived in the house, attended high school with Roubideaux, and the two were friends. Roubideaux occasionally babysat the twins.
The two little girls, who were 3 and a half at the time, were watching TV at home when someone unlatched the living room door and lured them outside. According to later testimony by Tina, the person who lured them was Jackie Roubideaux.
Tina later testified that she and her sister initially followed Roubideaux without hesitation, since they knew her as their babysitter, and she was a friend of their Aunt Thomasina. But as they were walked several blocks away from their home, they became scared.
A neighbor named Thelma McCraig later claimed that she had noticed a teenage girl dragging 2 little girls down the street by their arms. Thelma said the teenager, quote, had hold of the 2 girls by their wrists, and they were trying to pull loose, unquote. But Thelma never reported the incident to authorities.
If it's not reported, did it really happen? I mean, yeah. I don't know if it happened because, why didn't she report it?
Well,
it
yeah.
baffles me, especially when they were looking for these 2 little girls.
Yeah. Or maybe she did. We've uncovered numerous cases where it's a victim like this, a person who's minoritized, marginalized, and people did say things. But nobody was listening.
Nobody listened.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That could be. Anyway, according to Tina, Roubideaux took the twins to a white house near railroad tracks. She said, quote, there was broken furniture inside. When we got inside, she took us to the refrigerator and told us to get in. She said our aunt will be there to get us out and take us for ice cream later, unquote. Roubideaux then shut the refrigerator door and left.
2 days later, some children were playing in the deserted house. 2 days later.
Yeah.
When they heard cries coming from a grungy refrigerator. An 11-year-old girl named Kathy Ford and another neighborhood child opened the refrigerator door where they discovered Tina Carpenter miraculously alive.
Tina had survived by breathing through a tiny hole in the refrigerator. Her twin sister Mary died of asphyxia. According to Kathy, Tina was naked and covered with bites and bruises. Kathy asked Tina who put her and her sister in the refrigerator, and Tina replied, Jackie Boo or Jackie Burr, although some accounts say Jackie Burnett. In any case, the only Jackie that the family knew was Jackie Roubideaux.
Roubideaux instantly became a suspect. But a lack of physical evidence and the age of the survivor left the investigation stalled, and Roubideaux remained free. She also continued to babysit.
Yeah. In 1977, she was babysitting for George and Rose Carter, a young Native American couple known within her family circle. The couple frequently called on Roubideaux to watch their 19-month-old baby girl, Nima.
According to George, Nima was, quote, very quiet and very laid back, but always observing. She learned things quickly. I remember she used to take out the kitchen drawers, stack them like stairs, and climb up into our cabinets and hide, unquote, which is such a precious memory of a young kid.
Yeah. Then on Halloween night in 1977, Nima was placed in her crib by her parents at their home in Lawton, Oklahoma. The house was a small one-bedroom, so George and Rose slept in the living room while Nima slept in the bedroom.
Later that night, they heard Nima crying, but decided to let her cry it out. A method of sleep training. That's a Western thing, y'all. Eventually, they didn't hear her anymore and assumed that she had fallen back asleep. The next morning, the Carters awoke to discover that Nima was missing from her crib.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means thousands of can't-miss deals just in time for summer.
The denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses.
I always find something amazing.
Plus, buy it online and pick it up in-store the same day for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
At first, George and Rose thought that Nima had somehow gotten out of the crib by herself. So they checked the entire house for her, like looked in the cabinets and everything. And then, since they couldn't find her, they checked the yard. But Nima was nowhere to be found. When the police showed up, George and Rose immediately became suspects. So they agreed to take lie detector tests, which they passed with flying colors, and they were cleared.
During the police investigation, it was learned that the windows of the Carter house were locked, but there was an outside door that would not lock. It was believed that an intruder entered the home without force through that door and then walked through the room in which the parents were sleeping in order to reach Nima.
But some people believe that the kidnapper had crept into the home much earlier and had hidden in Nima's closet, waiting for the Carters to fall asleep. Then the kidnapper took Nima, crept through the tiny Lawton home, boldly past the sleeping parents and out through the door.
That is a terrifying prospect of events.
It is, yeah.
My worst nightmare. So now let's get into the investigation and the arrest. So a month after the abduction, little Nima's badly decomposed body was discovered beside a refrigerator in an abandoned house just 4 blocks away, and not many blocks from where Mary's body had been found a year and a half earlier.
Her body was initially found when a group of neighborhood boys opened the refrigerator door, causing her remains to fall out, and they fled in terror. I guess they didn't get anybody to take a look at it because another passerby found the body and notified authorities.
Investigators determined that her abductor had placed her inside the refrigerator shortly after the kidnapping, causing her to suffocate.
The Carters' acquaintances fell under suspicion, including neighborhood babysitters Joy Smith and Jackie Roubideaux. Then someone remembered that Roubideaux had been questioned in the Carpenter case under almost identical circumstances.
The sister that survived, Tina.
Yeah.
So she was in there, little 3-year-old girl.
Yep.
With her dead twin.
Yeah.
For at least a day.
Yeah.
Which is unimaginable.
Yeah.
Police spoke with the clerk of a convenience store located near the Carter residence. She was personally acquainted with Roubideaux, and she told police that she saw Roubideaux several times near the Carter residence within a few hours of the estimated time of abduction.
She also claimed that she and Roubideaux had had a discussion that afternoon in which Roubideaux said something about George Carter after she learned that the Carters had hired a different babysitter for the evening. According to the clerk, Roubideaux said, quote, "They told me that was my job. Well, if that's the way he wants it, so be it," unquote.
Oh.
Which doesn't really sound that threatening, but it was described as threatening and menacing. And
Sure.
But it just sounds like, well, if that's how he wants it,
Fine.
fine.
Whatever.
I'm going to go play bingo, which is what she said she did.
Wait, oh, really?
Yeah.
Bingo came after that. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you lose a job, what are you going to do? But also,
Yeah.
I just think, she's young. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, young people don't really care how things sound.
Yeah,
and so
that's
that
true.
just seems like a thing a young person might say.
Would say, yeah.
In a random conversation.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like ominous to me at all.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not making any excuses for Jackie. I'm just saying that
Oh,
just
no,
sounds.
I'm
that
just saying
sound,
that doesn't sound ominous. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so when questioned, Roubideaux said she was playing bingo on the night that Nima disappeared. A detective, Davidson, later recalled, quote, "She was very quiet. She never looked you in the eyes. Her eyes were always somewhere else or looking at the ground. She would always get right close to telling you something critical, and then she'd back off," unquote.
But mostly Davidson remembers an odd response from Roubideaux. He said, quote, "She was very angry about the fact that everybody got to play bingo and she would get stuck babysitting," unquote. Which doesn't really make any sense with this other stuff that went on. So
Well,
I don't even know what to think about that. Because she theoretically was angry that George got somebody else to babysit. But then she was mad that she had to babysit and she couldn't play bingo. I don't know.
but then she was also mad that they didn't hire her to babysit.
Right.
So what
know.
is it, Roubideaux?
What are you mad at?
Detective Ray Anderson, who was investigating Mary Carpenter's murder, got tired of what he called, quote-unquote, cat and mouse games. Evidence was flimsy, so they needed a confession. Quote, "Finally, one day I said, enough of this. I figured I'd confront Jackie and take my one shot with her," unquote.
Detective Anderson brought Roubideaux down to the local Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation office. Quote, "She never really came out and admitted to sticking the Carpenter twins in that refrigerator, but she said enough. She confirmed things we already knew and some things we didn't," unquote.
It's kind of vague, don't you think?
Very vague.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's talking about.
What does that mean? And where's the transcript? So Roubideaux did not say anything about Nima's murder, but detectives were convinced that they had identified Nima's killer. However, the DA did not file charges because he felt that there was not enough evidence on the Nima case.
On either case.
On either case. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just a Nima one. Okay. So now let's get into the trial. What do you got for us, Beth?
So Roubideaux was not charged until 2 years later,
Huh.
on October 19th, 1979, when she was charged with the first-degree murder of Mary Carpenter. Roubideaux then sat in prison for more than 2 years before her trial. And at some point, probably in 1980, Roubideaux gave birth to a son.
And now I'm just doing the math about all of that. Am I the only one doing the math about 2 years?
No, I did. I did a lot of math.
Okay.
Because there was an article about her son, and he was 23 at the time, and I had to subtract, and so I think he was born in 1980, and so...
Okay. I'm just immediately, my brain calculator was like, wait a minute. 9 months is what it takes, and she was there for 2 years. What?
Well, she was arrested or charged in 1979. So it's possible she was already pregnant when she went to jail. Although it's
here I am
course,
thinking that the guards did something bad.
Well,
okay.
that is possible too. I don't know. Like you said, we weren't there. We don't know.
We don't know. But
yeah.
In any case, in the meantime, prosecutors built the case against Roubideaux. One of the reasons why they waited so long was to allow Tina to get older so she could testify.
Yeah.
Which, strategy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trial is a game.
They really didn't have much evidence.
Mm-hmm.
They're waiting for Tina to get older so she can testify.
Mm-hmm.
The 1982 trial lasted for 4 weeks. 64 witnesses appeared during the 11 days of testimony. An expert testified that the bite mark on Tina's arm was consistent with Roubideaux's teeth and not consistent with Mary's teeth.
However, the bite marks were not photographed well, and at least one forensic expert said that the bites resembled what one would expect from another child, speculating that Mary bit Tina several times as they struggled to get out of the refrigerator. This is apparently not uncommon in situations where children are struggling to survive.
The prosecution called a couple of inmates who had spent time in the Comanche County Jail with Roubideaux. Both testified that Roubideaux had admitted her guilt to them in early May of 1981.
Roubideaux also took the stand. She denied everything and claimed that on the day the twins were abducted, she walked home from school, arriving there at 1:30 p.m., and that she had not left her home for the rest of the day, something that her family corroborated. She also said that she always stayed home in her free time and never roamed the neighborhood.
However, 4 firemen testified that for a time before Mary's murder, Roubideaux had been suspected of activating false fire alarms. Remember the fire alarms?
Uh-huh.
And it was near where her body was found, where Mary's body was found.
Whoa!
Yeah.
That detail was lost upon me until now. Wow.
Yes. And because of these false alarms, she had been monitored by the firemen.
Mm-hmm.
They watched out for her.
Mm.
And they said that they often observed her walking around in the neighborhood.
But another witness, Catherine Parker, testified that Tina had told her that a man and a boy had put her and her sister in the refrigerator. However, she never told investigators about the incident when they were investigating the murder.
Another one who never told investigators.
Yeah,
So I don't know about that.
Well, yeah, it's definitely something to note.
It's curious.
Mental note
yeah.
made, yes.
In the end, the jury failed to reach a consensus, and it resulted in a hung jury. Roubideaux was then retried in 1983, so the next year. As in the first trial, Kathy Ford and Tina Carpitcher were called as witnesses. And then Thelma McCraig, who had not testified in the 1982 trial, was also called as a witness.
Thelma said that on the day of the incident, she and her husband were installing siding on their house when she saw Jackie Roubideaux pulling 2 little girls toward the abandoned house where they were eventually found. She said Jackie was holding their arms by the wrists and that they were trying to pull loose.
Thelma described the children she saw as dark girls about 2.5 years old. She said she saw Roubideaux walk by a short time later and that she was alone at that time. Thelma claimed that the reason she never came forward during the investigation was that she didn't want to get involved.
Oh, that just makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Kathy Ford was one of the 2 children who opened the refrigerator. She was 11 at the time. According to Kathy, when she asked Tina who did this to her and her sister, Tina said Jackie Boo or Jackie Burr.
Tina, who is now 10, testified to what happened to her.
Poor Tina.
Yeah. She told the court that she stayed alive by breathing through a hole in the refrigerator. She said she tried to wake Mary up, but she wouldn't wake up.
By the time of her testimony, Tina had told the story so many times that it's been reported that her voice had a sing-song quality to it when testifying. In this trial, and in the 1982 trial, defense attorneys alleged that Tina had been coached by law enforcement officials and taught to memorize her testimony.
But Tina has always maintained that she was testifying as to what she remembered and that she had not memorized what she was saying.
Yeah, I know that is why they're like, kids shouldn't be in the courtroom,
right.
Blah, blah, blah. But I have a lot of faith in children, and I personally, I remember my 2nd birthday. So
my God, really?
Uh-huh. Yeah. And so it doesn't seem like, I know there are memories that we don't have because they happened to us so early, but 2 and 3 does not seem like a weird time to have a memory. Really?
Yeah, it does to me. I don't remember much from before I was 5.
Okay.
And I have this memory So this is something weird that happened to me. So I have this memory of my sister learning to walk. And my sister is...
Minnie, everybody.
Yes, Minnie.
Hey, shout out to Minnie.
She's 2.5 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
So she would have been about 1 probably when she learned how to walk.
Okay.
So that would have made me, 3.5.
Okay.
And so I have this memory of her learning how to walk, and my arms are stretched out and she's walking to me.
Okay.
But then I was watching old family movies and it was in the movies. So my memory was of the movie. It wasn't a real memory.
Oh. Well, I don't care what you say. I remember my McDonald's birthday party. And I think Tina remembers everything from what happened that day.
I think everybody has a different, some people remember. I mean, I know people who say they don't remember anything from before they were 10. And then other people
crazy.
like
what, were
you.
Your eyes closed for 10? What? That's crazy.
And then people like you who remember things from when they're like 2 or 3. So I think everybody's memory is different.
I agree. But I think it is unfair for a system, such as the court system or criminal legal system, to blanketly say that young people's testimonies are not valid just because they were young.
Right.
When it should be case by case.
Yes.
That's all.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm done. I ruined the whole show. You know what? Fruit Loops is dead.
It's over now.
We were about to turn, Fruit Loops is going to be 7 years old. Wait, we started in 2018.
Are we
18, 19,
7 or 8?
20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25.
I think we're turning 8.
Fruit Loops is going to be 7.
Oh, 7. Okay.
Yeah, and what do we remember from when we started? Nothing. Okay.
So you just spoiled your whole theory there.
Yep, I ruined everything. So now we're back to normal.
Okay, where were we? Oh, so Tina, they allege that she was coached by law enforcement officials and taught to memorize her testimony. Right. But Tina has always maintained that she was testifying as to what she remembered and that she had not memorized anything.
Shout out to Tina.
Yeah.
And what a brave, that's not easy.
Very brave, yeah.
This young girl to
10-year-old girl.
Do all of that is a lot. And wow.
Yeah.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Back to the trial, one of the people who testified was the clerk of the convenience store located near the Carter residence, who spoke with Roubideaux on the night of Nema Carter's abduction. Nema's murder was introduced into the trial to show a pattern of behavior by Roubideaux, despite the fact that she had never been charged for that crime, so it's prejudicial.
Yeah. And the reasoning behind this was that the two crimes were remarkably similar. Roubideaux lived within walking distance and in the same neighborhood as each victim. In both cases, Roubideaux had babysat and spent time with the victims.
The victims were very young Native American girls. They were abducted from their homes, which Roubideaux knew the layout of and had access to. Roubideaux knew about the door in the Carter home that would not lock.
The victims were found in abandoned houses where Roubideaux had previously been observed. A refrigerator was the instrument of death in both cases, the old-fashioned lock-up type of refrigerator that predated the magnetic door, and the cause of death of each was asphyxia.
Instrument of death is so serious.
Yeah.
But it's a refrigerator.
Ominous, yeah.
That we open so many times. And I've never actually used one of those old school fridges that has the lock.
Yeah.
I've seen them in museums. And I think I've seen, mostly museums.
A lot of, because I remember as a kid being warned not to get into refrigerators because
Well, who would do that,
people would leave refrigerators out, like in this case, in abandoned homes, and kids would play, and they'd get into the refrigerator and close the door, and then they'd be locked in, and then they'd die. So I remember being warned not to get in.
That's a real thing.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a real thing. Yeah.
Wow.
But that was, as this says, that was before modern refrigerators. It was a handle that you would unlock the door with.
Yeah, it was a latch. Like there was a mechanism that could not let it be open from the inside.
Yeah.
Like if a grape is pushing on the door of our fridge, it won't close.
Yeah, it will open.
Yeah. So obviously technology has advanced to prevent this kind of thing happening.
Yeah.
But just for me as a learner, I did not realize that fridges were deadly.
Instruments of death.
Yes, we're instruments of murder.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So anyway, at the end of this trial, Roubideaux was convicted and received a life sentence. Her attorneys later appealed based on the fact that Nima's case was introduced and allowed to influence the jury. But in August of 1985, the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals upheld Roubideaux's sentence by a vote of 2-1. Now let's get into where are they now? Tell us, Beth.
In a parole hearing in 2003, Roubideaux claimed that on the day the twins disappeared, she and the twins' aunt, Thomasina, were doing drugs. Doing drugs.
It's been a long time. I got one more time. Doing drugs.
And they took the twins for a car ride. They were so high that they didn't know what they were doing, and they, quote, put them to bed, unquote, in the refrigerator.
Wow,
that
what?
Didn't happen.
That doesn't sound...
No. That doesn't sound real, and she did not get paroled.
Okay. So in 2003, Roubideaux's son, who was 3 when she was convicted and 23 years old in 2003, was charged with the rape of a 5-year-old girl. And the charges stemmed from a December 2001 abduction and assault on the girl, who was returned home after the incident.
He apparently had an intellectual disability, and when arrested, he told police that the child wanted to have sex with him. Ugh. In 2004, after several delays due to competency hearings, Sean Michael Roubideaux pleaded guilty to kidnapping and raping a child. He was sentenced to a total of 50 years.
Jackie Roubideaux died of liver cancer on August 26, 2005, at the Mabel Bassett Correctional Center in McLeod. She was only 46 years old at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
2 years after Nima's murder, George and Rose Carter had another baby girl. Sadly, Rose died in 2000.
Oh.
Nobody was ever charged in the abduction and murder of Nima Carter, though many people believe that the person responsible was Jackie Roubideaux. But not everyone is convinced that Roubideaux abducted Nima, including George Carter.
Oh, interesting. So 2 months prior to Nima's abduction, the Carters found their dog was poisoned. A few days later, they returned home to discover it trashed by vandals. George said, quote, I find it hard to think all those events were mere coincidence. The Jackie Roubideaux we knew? No, it just doesn't add up. I never sensed that about her. Whenever Jackie came over, Nima would run up to her and give her a hug. But several years ago, I saw an interview with Jackie in a newspaper. She said she was on drugs at that time in her life. Was it someone we knew? I think so. Someone who was familiar with our house, but I've never been fully convinced it was Jackie, unquote.
But George Carter found his peace years ago. Quote, I don't need to know because the person who did this will have to ultimately answer to God. You know, I'll never forget the act, but I forgive the person. I really do. And that alone has set me free, unquote.
This quote I read so many times today and in the weeks leading up to covering this case because it is so beautiful in the face of such tragedy and awfulness.
Yeah.
It's like expecting a seed to grow in concrete. Like it doesn't make any sense. But after such a tragedy, this man his heart is still capable of forgiving, which is just so amazing to me.
Yeah, it is.
So that's the story, y'all. Let us know what y'all think. And right now, Beth and I are going to let you know what we think in our takes. Spicy hot takes. What do you got, Beth?
So at first, when I started researching this case, I didn't think there was going to be enough information. We didn't even know if Roubideaux was Native American.
Sure, yeah.
But the deeper I went into it, the more I found.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I assume there was probably some abuse going on at home if she was guilty and she was taking it out on the children, vulnerable victims that she could easily overpower. They're easy victims.
Right. But also, where did she learn that shit?
Right.
Who gave her the idea to put a child in a refrigerator? Who told you to do that, Roubideaux?
And I couldn't find anything about her home life except for names.
Okay.
But then when I read the names and I read about her family, and, I found some stuff on Ancestry.com. And it mentioned that her great uncle was sent to an Indian school.
Oh.
And it all kind of clicked into place.
Yeah.
If it's true that Roubideaux committed these crimes, then I would not be surprised if there was a lot of abuse in the home. And it all came from generational trauma due to these children being ripped away from their families and placed in abusive institutions.
Yeah.
And then her son. Then her son was also convicted of a crime, which makes me think, what the hell happened to these kids?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Roubideaux it feels like a consequence, or she's the symptom or the product of something else more sinister that we don't know about.
We don't know.
Yeah.
And it's shameful what our country did to those Native American children.
Yeah.
And the ripples of trauma that came down the family trees. I'm not surprised that that's what happened.
No, I mean, yes, none of us should be surprised. You're right. What a wild case.
Yeah.
I agree with you on everything, Beth. I might elaborate a little bit more. I cannot believe there is no movie or limited series about this case, because I looked. Because I mean,
there's hardly anything. There's not even a podcast.
It's riveting. It is interesting. There's a lot of history there and a lot of mystery. So it's a really intriguing case. I was just surprised by that. I'm not saying go make a movie and make money off this, but this
go
is
make a movie.
but this is a case I think that is worthy of exploration and elevation because of all the things that we've already talked about. It's so sad that Nima's case was not solved. I wonder if Roubideaux, the fire alarm thing. Yeah. And this goes to more about her being abused and we just don't know about it. Because she created a lot of chaos and destruction in theory, right? Because we don't know for sure if she did these things, but setting off fire alarms is something that somebody would do. I just want to see what happens.
Yeah.
Or
she's bored and she needs.
Yeah. Or
she wants some excitement.
Yeah. There's something like her dopamine levels are not regulated, so she needs a hit. Yeah. In order to get through. And so one little flick of that fire alarm and watch what ensues from your tiny little act. And I don't know if she poisoned the Carter's dog or not, but after the dog was gone, the house was trashed by vandals, and then Nima was abducted. So I don't know, but it's
all very strange.
Strange.
Yeah.
It's very suspicious. And snatching two girls at one time is crazy.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, if this is the girl who was setting off fire alarms, then she just escalates or goes to the next level up. And in the heat of the moment, she lured the girls out. Okay, lured them out. Check. Got that. Now I'm going to get them to go with me.
Refrigerator.
But they're getting a little bit tough, but I'm going to just grab them by their arms. And even though they're kicking and screaming, oh my gosh, nobody's stopping me. I'm getting away with this.
Yeah.
And it's really bad, but I'm kind of getting a thrill out of it because I'm not getting in trouble. And then we get to this abandoned house. And I don't know if she knew what she was going to do. This is the whole movie. This is why I was like, I can't believe this is a movie. I don't know if she didn't know.
Is it planned
did
or
she plan putting them in there? But
who knows?
Either way, I imagine that her impulsivity and naughtiness she would get some sort of reward when she would act out that way and not get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's dopamine or what, but that's the word I'm going to use for now.
Okay.
And so she locked them in the fridge she's young. And I was wondering a lot if somebody messed with Jackie in that way when she was young and locked her in a fridge. And for her to even get that idea, it's crazy. But Beth said that was a thing that people warned kids about back in the day.
Might have been, the warning that she heard. She's like, oh, you know what?
What?
I'm not going to get in a refrigerator, but I'm going to stick some kids in a refrigerator.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever stuck your Barbie's head in the microwave and pressed 1 minute to see what happened?
Oh my God.
Okay, I guess it's just me. Anyway, we started this podcast to be able to talk about cases that we never heard about before, about the victims of color and those who are minoritized. And I thought about this case sort of juxtaposed next to the JonBenet Ramsey disappearance murder.
Oh, yeah.
A really tragic case. But the difference is, by virtue of JonBenet Ramsey being white
and wealthy.
Yes. To this day, I had a meeting at my job the other day and somebody was like, JonBenet Ramsey, am I right? Like, still comes up. And these girls, their names, Nima Louise Carter, Mary Elizabeth Carpenter, and, also what happened to Tina, never heard a peep about it.
Never heard of them. Yeah.
And so I just thought that was really, really interesting. Also, loss of life is always sad, but it feels acutely worse when it's children.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
It wasn't their time. They had so much life, so much. Oh, Whitey is turning 50, and I'm just thinking, like, that's so many years. These girls didn't even get a fraction of that. Yeah. And I just, who they could be now, what they could be Nobel laureates or presidents or, dignitaries. Just, we don't know. And that is also a tragedy. And I just want to say rest in power to the victims, Nima and Mary Elizabeth, and wherever Tina is now. Our hearts go out to everybody affected by this, the family, the children, siblings, relatives, friends, playmates, the whole community. This was just a tremendous loss and a tough case.
Yep.
Beth, where can the people find us?
Our website is fruitloopspod.com, and we use Fruit Loops Pod for all of our social media.
This is a weekly podcast, and new episodes drop every Thursday. So until next time, look alive, y'all. It's crazy out there.